Final couple days of it, but any questions for me? Your final exam is posted for you as well. It's really easy. Essentially, I want you guys to take this information from this class and turn into a personal budgeting assignment, which we'll talk about today. But using this information to help you plan out for the future of where you're going to be financially, what you're thinking about, what are maybe your financial goals for the next 5-10 years. It's important to start thinking about that, as we all want to buy houses, we want to buy cars, if we get married or do anything else, what does that look like? So some of that. So any questions at all? All right, take that as a no. So with that, let's get into these slides. And I personally love talking about this week because it's all dealing with our personal finances. A lot of my first semester I taught this class, I had Financial Fitness Fridays, where we would talk about our own personal finances and how we can improve that. It's a joke we had in class of on a first date, would you ever ask anybody, hey, what's your credit score? Anybody? Connor, you asking on a first date, would you ask somebody what their credit score is?
I wouldn't. No.
You would? No? Brian, would you?
No, I would not.
Why not? That's a great icebreaker. Hannah, first date, asking about credit scores? No? Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You're going in and out. I'm sorry.
Oh, I said in my class, usually I have my students, I said on a first date, would you ask your date, hey, what's your credit score?
Probably not.
Probably not?
No.
Okay. So,
maybe the second or third.
Okay, maybe I had one of my females in the class goes, if the date's not going well, that'll be the first question I ask. Because it'll get awkward and then I'll leave. But personally, I think it's a great question to ask because what people don't quite realize is when you do get married, you're taking on the financial liabilities of your spouse. So let's say, and my wife and I, let's say I had the one who had a whole lot of credit card debt, and maybe I didn't tell her about that. And then we got married, and now all of a sudden, she's like, "How do you have $20,000 in credit card debt?" Oh, I should. So sorry about that. I don't know. I like to golf. I racked it up. Had a couple golfing trips. I mean, could be stuff like that. Student loans. I mean, these are various things. So you might be sitting there with a really high 790, 800 credit score. Fantastic. But then you don't ask somebody or know. Like that's something. Those are important things to know. So maybe not the first date, but second date. It's very important. Personal finance is extremely important. If you take nothing else away from this class about anything, hopefully you take stuff away from this lecture, this discussion. So with that, I'm going to start talking about our budgets and balance sheets. So how many of y'all have a monthly budget that you try and follow?
We should, but I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really either.
No. Hannah, do you have a budget?
I do. Me and my dad have a cattle business, so that's kind of something we always have done. And
Okay.
when I went to college, he made me make one, so I do.
Good. So having budgets and understanding your balance sheets is very important. And think about why we budget in general. It's more along the lines of not knowing how much money I have to spend. That's what our bank accounts are for. And before the internet fully came about, I don't know if you remember any of your parents ever Well, most of y'all are young enough where technology was around. I remember, I'm not that much older than you guys. I remember my mom when we would go to the grocery store or whatever, and she'd write a check. She'd write in her checkbook how much she wrote out, and it could balance her checkbook. Now we really don't have to do that because it's all right there. You can pull up the app for your bank, and you can see what's in your bank account. You can see digitally where you spent and what you spent. So budgeting now is more to plan for that future of what we want, of where we want to get to, what we want to achieve, and how we want to get there, right? I mean, we have two athletes in here. So before any game, you guys have a game plan of what you're going to do, right? Connor, you guys get a game plan for football, what the other team's going to do, all that, right? I assume.
Yes.
I hope we do. Brian, you guys probably break down other teams' pitching and where we're going with data and everything else, right?
Right.
So why would we not do that then for our own personal finances? That's something that we don't do a lot of times. So understanding that helps us line up for, I want to plan for this house. I know that I'm going to have to buy this house, but then I'll talk a little bit later about what it takes to do that. But there's a lot of steps you have to go through to make that happen. First, is figuring out your cash flow. And I got really creative with these slides. Like I said, I love personal financial topics, so I want to be Mr. Krabs someday. But we want to write down all the money that comes in and out, right? What's my personal cash flow? How much am I spending? How much am I making? We usually can predict that because we have jobs, we have salaries, and I mean, I can tell you how much we're going to make in November based off what is how we can map that out. Where it gets trickier is earlier in your lives, so where you guys sit now, and where you might have a job and, well, this week you might get 30 hours, next week you might get 40, then the week after that you might get 10. So how does that all play in? What's my cash flow? What's my reasonable estimation of where I can get to so that I can understand how much money I have to spend and what's my budget going to be? So understanding cash flow is important, where that can increase and where that can't. In talking with students, as we've done this, I know many who waiters, waitresses in town in Myrtle Beach over the summer. Usually, they can work 3 months, May, June, July, and not have to work the rest of the year to cover all their expenses and live and have money to live over the summer for the whole entire school year. That's not bad, being tips and everything else. So, but you got to project that out. This year, I don't think that'll happen. It's different ways. So we think about building a budget overall. There's Microsoft Excel. You guys are Excel wizards now, or we're not quite. These Harry Potter references. We might not be the Grand Wizard and all that stuff, but we're at Hogwarts and we're understanding it. But we're understanding Excel. There's different functions. The next time you open up Microsoft Excel from scratch, there's different templates in there. And you can actually get one of those templates and make it your budget. My wife uses it for our budget every month. And in our family, I'm the one who has the big picture. My wife is the one who manages the budget, despite me working on accounting and everything else. So I'm backwards. You can do the old-fashioned paper and pencil method, which works, but I don't recommend it. If you lose your piece of paper, you're out of luck. At least with Excel, you can upload it to Dropbox or one of those, you always have it with you to pull up and look at it. But now there are these cool, let's see if this takes me there. Oops, hold on. There are these cool, and let me stop sharing, and we'll share this one. there are these cool. What comes up? You guys seeing my web page now? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's the 7 best budget apps for 2020, and I have used a couple of these before. I like Mint. I've used Mint. What I like about it is, one, it's free, and two, it automatically connects to your bank account. So as you're spending things, spending money, buying stuff, doing what you're doing, this automatically tracks to your bank account, and as you spend, it'll put stuff in different categories. So if you budgeted $250 for entertainment for that month, then 250, it'll pop that in. You might have to adjust it around. It's not perfect. You might have to adjust it around. If you budgeted, so crazy, $400, $500 a month for Starbucks. If you don't think that's possible, I had a student in class who she got Starbucks like every day. And I asked her how much she spent. She's like $400 a month on Starbucks. I go, holy Toledo. That's a lot of mocha lattes. But you can track that. You can set up a category purely for Starbucks. So I like Mint. Mint is a great one to use. My best advice, just try and find an app that makes sense for you. See which one tracks over. Like I said, I've had a lot of success with Mint. I know I've had students who've used it and absolutely love it. So, let me get back to these slides. So I highly recommend that for you guys. There we go. So, now this is a unique perspective a lot of people don't think about. So the economy as a whole, and how has that necessarily impacted you right now? Have you been impacted by the economy, downturn, any of that? No. So the economic downturn that's occurred can have both positive and negative impacts, right? And thinking that through, for me, as someone with student loans, I haven't had to pay on my student loans. I'll take it right now. But also, economic downturn means there's other sacrifices. Businesses have to make cuts, other things have to happen. So we at Coastal, everyone has taken furlough days. There's less people, there's people who are laid off. So there's different ways that the economy can impact you in the future, right? Another aspect of how that has come together, the way to think about the economy in general is a bunch of large interconnected industries, right? So the sports industry encompasses media, food and beverage, education, transportation, right? So we think about all those things that go together that sports has an influence on and can be impacted by, right? Look no further than sports in the media. Without sports on TV, we don't have anything to watch, right? Media companies are struggling. I just spoke to somebody from ESPN yesterday, and it's all just a big waiting game of what's going to happen with college athletics, not just football, but all these others. How is that going to play together? Are we on this domino to fall for this thing to happen? So the economy is one big interconnected machine, right? So something very important to consider, especially in the sports industry from all these others. But let's say food and beverage. I heard, I watch a lot of CNBC, and there's a, what was he, the CEO of a large restaurant group based out of Dallas, and restaurant, they own land, so they own like shopping malls, everything else. And he said they are facing different things as far as in food and beverage. He says, because we have these instances where takeout, well, their takeout to pay for the containers, everything else, put the food in, those expenses increase by 30%, which then decreases overall margin on their food sales by 2 or 3%. Because we only have a profit margin of about 12%, that hurts. So different ways and how that plays into sports. Take Buffalo Wild Wings. I am willing to almost guarantee that Buffalo Wild Wings business, their stock price, and they're a publicly traded company, their stock price has probably gone down and has steadily stayed down because, yes, they're a restaurant, but they make a lot of money off people coming in and watching Amanda Nunes knock somebody out in UFC or whoever's fighting, or college sports, NFL. They make a lot of money. People coming into their restaurants to watch sports. There's no sports on TV. People aren't going to restaurants in general to go eat. But why would I go? Like, that's not the atmosphere. So those are elements that all play into this one big, large, interconnected piece. Some different demographic factors that impact our economy as a whole. The graying of America, meaning it's getting older. Birth rates have slowed down. Families aren't having as many kids, but people are living longer. So the graying of America, I'm joining them. Immigration, how's immigration play into this whole entire economy as a whole, right? And we think immigration and people, I'm originally from Florida, and there's a lot of migrant workers who pick all the strawberries and oranges and everything else. That if you ask somebody, if I ask a high school student in Florida, hey, you want to go out to the field and pick some oranges and do this? They're gonna be like, no. So immigration, how do we keep our food system going? And this is a major concern right now of how do we provide food to a country. There's one. Social Security and retirement. People need to start thinking about that. You at the age of 19, 20, 21 really need to start thinking about retirement. And yes, I know it's 50 years away, but we need to really start thinking about it. And then different business cycles. In these business cycles, you have to, every business goes through them. Where good businesses and good leadership comes into play is we're able to decrease those troughs, those downturns. Great companies are able to still kind of stay steady and on this kind of growth trend. There's an adage in business that if you ain't growing, you're dying. So you gotta stay on that trend as you're moving through, right? So we don't want to be in recession, and you saw this if you've watched any news over the past 6 months, how the economy has contracted and what we're doing, and we're trying to recover. So is that recovery trying to get back into peaks and valleys? The role of government, the role of the Fed, all these other people is to make that economy kind of not be as volatile up and down, but if we go down a little bit, and we go right back up. We can try and stay steady. The term you'll hear a lot about is called inflation. This means that there's a sustained increase in the general level of pricing. So what the Federal Reserve tries to control this is by around 2% annually. Meaning we don't want prices to increase on average by more than 2% annually. and that's the value of dollars. Everything's going up, so stuff's inflating prices, which is time value of money, all other things. And they do that by a consumer price index. So they take a lot of different products, we sample them, and they see what the prices are. So a little way to look at it. Now let's talk about your credit. Well, this isn't credit cards, but when I ask people what's your credit score, that's a very important number to know, right? I equate your credit score to knowing the blood work when you go to the doctor, what's your cholesterol, what's all these other elements. That's your credit score. This is your personal financial health diagnostic numbers that's there. And what makes up your credit score is that right there. 35% comes from payment history. So how do you make payments on time? Another part is the amounts owed. So you need to have a whole lot of money out, all these other elements. Length of credit history. A lot of y'all are going to get dinged on length of credit history because it's you don't have a whole lot yet. New credit lines. Are you looking for new credit? What are you doing? And then types of credit that's used. And types of credit used could be more installment credit, which is loans, mortgages, those revolving credit lines, which are credit cards, other aspects. These are very important to know because it assesses your overall credit worthiness. So you walk into a bank or you're walking in somewhere and you want to borrow $100,000 from me. Why not be like, well, Connor seems like a nice guy. And he looks presentable, but you might have just dressed well that day and taken a shower. I don't know. But when I pull up your credit score, that's going to give me an objective thing of, oh, okay, well, his credit score is 550. And I look at your credit report. And I can get your credit score pretty quick without, if I'm in the bank, I don't have to do a whole lot. I can pull that up. Your credit report is a little bit more tricky to look at. But you can see what that is immediately by, you can get a free one every year. Fair Credit Reporting Act. Highly recommend you do this. Know where you sit, especially as you get ready to graduate and move on. Know where you sit because very, very important. Knowing your credit score, knowing what your credit looks like, because that's going to impact your ability to get loans, do anything else. Your credit score is really the first gateway you walk through. So you want a loan, first thing, if your credit score is awful, they're not even going to talk to you. They won't. If I'm at a bank and you come in to get a mortgage or get a car loan or something, I see you got a 550, I'm not even going to touch you. Like, nope, sorry. I'm going to go deal with the person who's got a 700 around the corner or next in line because they're trustworthy. They're going to pay me back. I don't want to take on that risk. For a financial institution, if I'm giving you money, it's all about managing my risk and how likely are you to pay me back. You might say you're good for it, but how likely are you to pay me back? That's all this is about, managing risk. And there's 3 credit reporting agencies: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. All have their own unique things they like to report. Equifax has been around the longest. Experian slightly more progressive on some things. TransUnion's there, so they'll do it. All your credit score, you can get your credit score, and you'll see probably 3 on there: Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. One might be really high, one might be middle, one might be slightly lower. They tend to take the ones in the middle. What's there? So, and last but not least, let's talk about your taxes. So, how do y'all file your own taxes? Anybody file their taxes? Or do your parents still do it and claim you as a dependent?
Well, I know my parents do mine, or
Okay,
not
great.
mine, but they do it.
Okay. Brian, what about you?
That's the same with me.
Same with you? Okay. Huh. So once you get to a point where and there's some, I'll say now you're at a point where let's do it yourself, right? And I used to not do it. My mom would be the one who did it because she would just file mine at the same time as she did hers. But then mine got a little too complicated because once I got married, my wife and I, so that there's different filing statuses that you can file under. There's single, there's married filing jointly, married filing separate, and head of household. All of you right now I'm assuming, would file as single. There's benefits to filing your own tax return. There's little things like the CARES Act that was passed, getting stimulus money that can come to you. Now, if your claim is a dependent on that, you wouldn't get it. Your parents would get it. But if you file your own and you're not claimed as a dependent, then you would get it. So different aspects on those ones. What I recommend is at Coastal, we have a program called VITA, which is the Voluntary Income Tax Assistance Program. You bring your W-2s or whatever you have to VITA, we will do your taxes for you. That's a nice little benefit to have. We also are there to help you answer your questions. But the deadline to file your taxes is April 15th. Do not forget that. A little clarification there. That's actually the deadline to pay your taxes for the year. You can get a 6-month extension to file the actual tax, but you still have to make a payment by the 15th. If not, you can get charged a penalty by the IRS, and you don't want to have that happen. They're very, very aggressive. So make sure you pay your taxes. There are important things to remember. Education tax credits. So you'll probably hear about this as you go through, but there's deductions and there's credits. Deductions lower your taxable income before we start going all the way through the whole process, but they lower tax income. So my student loan interest is a deduction up to a certain amount. So I can reduce my taxable income by like $2,000. Cool. And then after that, then we figure out my tax liability, meaning how much you actually have to pay in taxes. As credits, on the other hand, reduce your tax liability, meaning that you are paying less money. And as far as education tax credits, there's 2 that are available to you. Use the one that's only for 4-year students up first before you go to the lifelong learning credit. It'll help save you. If your parents aren't using that, they need to. Helps get some of the money back. So, well, any questions for me? Not any of this. Personal finance questions. Fire away. None whatsoever? All right. So with that, guys, it's been fun throughout this semester, if you want to call it that, having you in class. If you ever come across any questions, life, personal finance, any of that stuff, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I have one of my grad students who now works at Coastal. She's like, I'm buying a car, what do I do? And then she comes around and I'm buying a house. How do I do this? What are the steps? So I'm always here to help with advice and comments. Once we get back classes, let me know if you have questions about the program, any stuff along those lines. I'm not sure if any of y'all are my advisees. I don't think so, maybe. But don't hesitate. I'm more than happy to answer questions. We're here to help you. All right. So with that, that's all I got. And we'll see y'all in a couple weeks back on campus, hopefully. So, see ya.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep. Yep.